Hey y'all, welcome back to SoulsReaper Healing. This is something I'm going to start doing on Fridays, Freedom Friday. We're going to talk about different things that our beliefs are patterns. So in this video, I put on the title, well, I'm going to, were you raised with this belief? And this is something that popped into my head last night. I kept hearing the scripture, spare the rod, spoil the child. And in my mind, I'm thinking, God wouldn't tell us to beat our kids. You know, Jesus wouldn't tell us that either. There's something that I'm not understanding about this, because when I grew up, the preachers, you know, my parents, everybody else's parents, when they heard that specific scripture, they thought it was spare the rod, spoil the child, meaning spare the punishment, spoil the child. But it's actually the opposite of that, okay? Because I did look it up, because I really wanted to know, because it was in my mind. And I had my youngest daughter was having a moment, and she was very upset, and she was projecting that anger towards me. And I started feeling that, you know, old me trying to project back to her the exact same energy that she was showing me. And deep in my soul, I was like, this isn't me anymore. So I had to take a minute, and I had to breathe and ground myself and understand that there was obviously something else she was, you know, going through, and we needed to get to the bottom of it. She's a Gemini, so she's in her head a lot. She likes to hold things in. She's normally very chatty, but, you know, when something is bothering or hurting her, she feels like she has to hold it in. And I think that is also a pattern that she's learned from me or her father, or, you know, because we were the first relationship that she has been around. She's grown up around. And I know I myself was that way. I held in things until it came pouring out, no matter what, and it would always be outward toward other people. But now that I've healed that, and I still struggle. I mean, we all do, guys. But now that I see it differently, from a different perspective, and, you know, referencing this spare the rod, spoil the child, because it popped into my head after her and I had talked and figured everything out, you know, that it was something happened at school that she was upset about, and she's just not used to talking. She thinks she has to hold it in. It's a learned behavior. It's a pattern. And I have to face this with my children, because I help them create those patterns. The patterns that I have from childhood, I have now passed to my children. And each and every day I work towards undoing those patterns. Like, not really undoing, but reprogramming the pattern. Changing it to a different pattern. Something more positive. Something that they feel they can talk and open up and not suppress what's going on with them. So I wanted to get into the description of this, because I did research and I looked up the meaning of rod in the Bible. And it says, the rod represents protection and love. And I wrote, it has been taken wrong by so many for so many years, using it as a reason to take out our own pain on our children. Because we've all been wounded. We've all been through this cycle many, 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 many times over. My parents, their parents' parents, it's gone on ancestors after ancestors after ancestors. And it's because of the patterns they learned and then turned over and taught their own children, and then the cycle continues. So with this question, if you were raised with this belief, a lot of people that were raised in any kind of households that had any kind of church or anything like that, even the ones that did not, basically what it's saying in the Bible, instead of what people are literally thinking, spare the rod, spare the punishment, spoil the child. Sparing the rod, sparing the protection and love. So if you're not protecting and loving your child, and that's not just your own child, that's your inner child, then you will spoil the child. Meaning, not spoil as in like people usually take it. Spoil, people are thinking, they don't care and they're going to do whatever they want type stuff. But I looked up the Bible meaning of spoil. The biblical meaning of spoil is to strip by violence, to rob, to spoil one of his goods or possessions, to seize by violence, to take by force. So, in that, spare the protection and love, meaning not showing protection and love to your child or your inner child. You are taking away from that child. Like it said, stripping by violence, robbing them, robbing yourself. That's what it means by spoil. So if any of you have were raised with this belief, and I've been working on this for a while, couple years now, about, for a long time, and this is a pattern as well, thinking, I have kiddos that have special needs and things like that, but thinking that, what is wrong with my child? What is wrong with my child? Not having, at that time in my life, not having a greater understanding that there's nothing wrong with my child, but there is something wrong with my inner child, to where I projected my own wounding on them, just as my parents did me, their parents did them, etc., etc. And, it goes back to that blame. By placing blame outside of ourselves, we're not doing any service to ourselves. We're blaming others for what we've created. And I had to work on this, and I still work on this every day, because we're human. We're spiritual beings, have a human experience, and sometimes it feels easy to fall back into those old ways, but I tell you what, whenever I felt a little bit of that old way I used to handle things, it did not even resonate with me anymore. It didn't even sound like me. And I'm like, okay, let's just take a pause. I need to ground. I need to process this so we can talk about this. And it's just having a greater understanding. So if you guys grew up with this belief, now that I've given you the translation of what was given to me last night when I did the research to find out what the meaning of this was in the Bible, what the meaning of this is in the Bible. And it's all about protection and love. Protect your children, love your children, even when they're having a meltdown, even when they're having the worst day. Because in turn, it's your inner child as well that you're protecting and you're loving. When you protect and love yourself, you will project that energy outwards to your children. You will show them a different side of you. It's just like with any pattern. You have to start changing the way you see things, the way you say things, and reprogramming that in your brain. It's just like with anything, when you go work a new job, you have to learn the process of what you do each day before you get into a routine, correct? So it's the same with our minds. You can reprogram your mind. We are not broken. Sorry, guys. We are not broken. We just have a lot of old beliefs and old patterns that we need to change. And once we can do that, our world starts to change. Starts to evolve. And I'm grateful for that. If I hadn't been through the things and the patterns and the beliefs that I had growing up, I wouldn't have gotten to the place I am today. That's all I have for you guys today. I'll see you soon.